Hey, what's up, loves? It's Shayla's89, and we are here with some animation videos. So who we're starting with is animated horror flicks called Alone at the Park. Please don't be loud. I might have to turn you down. It's gonna play. I'm gonna see it play.
This happened to me a few years ago. I was in high school at the time, and I would usually get home by going through the local park, not too far away. It probably took longer for me to get home this way, but the alternative was a narrow sidewalk next to a busy road. At least going through the park was peaceful, and I would occasionally bump into some friends on the way. On this particular night, however, the park seemed a lot emptier than usual. Not that I minded walking alone, given that the area was relatively safe and nothing dangerous or even remotely interesting ever really happened around here.
Still creepy.
As I arrived halfway through the park, I noticed something rather strange. Someone had left some of their things on one of the park benches. At first I thought it was just some trash that someone hadn't bothered to throw away, but as I got closer, I could see that there were in fact belongings, some of which were valuable. Despite what I said about the area being safe, it still seemed like a pretty bad idea to leave things out in the open. My initial conclusion was that perhaps a dog escaped from its leash and the owner ran after it, so I decided to adopt a sense of civic duty by sticking around for a while until someone showed up.
That stuff will be left there. I'm not sitting alone in the dark at a park. No. If that person was that stupid to leave their stuff there, then it will stay there. No. No. Just, That feels like a setup, like it's perfectly placed there, and nobody's around.
After waiting for at least 15 minutes, I started to wonder if anyone was going to show up that night. Come to think of it, I hadn't seen another soul since I entered the park. I decided that I had already waited long enough, and it was getting quite late. I thought about taking the belongings with me, but I didn't want it to look like I was stealing, so I just ignored it and moved on. Then, just as I started walking,
What was that?
I heard something run past me.
No, they didn't run, they crawled really fast, and whatever that was, and whatever tall grass that was.
I heard it again just moments later, and it seemed even louder this time around.
To go.
Something didn't feel right, and for whatever reason, I just started walking away very fast. I felt instantly relieved as I approached the end of the park, but this feeling turned out to be extremely short-lived, as I noticed a large shadow blocking the way to the exit. The vague silhouette suggested large animal features that seemed almost predatory in nature, and I instantly felt threatened by its appearance. It stared back at me with its large eyes as if it were trying to anticipate my next move, yet remained surprisingly still and silent. I wasn't very keen on the idea of closing any more distance between myself and whatever it was that stood in my way, and given an inherent fear of the unknown, I decided to turn around and quickly head back the same way I came.
Why would you face
I refrained from running, but only because I thought doing so may provoke it to start chasing after me. My heart was pounding, but I tried to stay calm as I cautiously made my way back. I didn't want to reveal that I was afraid, but I found myself counting every step forward, hoping that I wasn't being followed. I couldn't even bear to look behind me at this point, but it was only moments later when I realized I didn't need to. the same dark silhouette appeared once again, blocking the path ahead of me, this time considerably closer. I slowly backed away without breaking any eye contact with the creature. It seemed content to let me go as I continued to back further and further away, which is when I discovered the true horror of the situation. I was being stalked not by one, but two creatures that were blocking my only means of escape. There was no other way out. Like hungry sharks, they began to circle around me, slowly closing in for the kill. Then suddenly, I heard something in the distance, followed by small, subtle impacts on the ground around me. The sound of the rain appeared to startle them, and they soon ran for cover as it continued to get stronger. I never thought I would be so happy to catch the rain that day, and I was relieved to get home safely.
You got lucky. You got very lucky.
It took me a couple of months to build up the courage to start using the park again after that. The only thing I knew for sure was that getting caught by the rain was the least of my worries.
He got very, very lucky that the weather was on his side and didn't get killed or whatever. I don't like, so you don't know how to climb gates or something? Because I sure would, but then again, they might climb the gate faster than you can, so I guess you're screwed. But, Okay, so our next story is from Dark and Twisted. As usual, he did just make 100,000K, or 100,000 subs. Congratulations to him. May he reach 1 million soon, if not faster. He works hard on his animations by himself. He edits, does everything himself, and to reach 100K, many blessings to you. So let's. Oh, and this story from him is called Creepy Dark Web Horror Story.
A dark and twisted story. My best friend, Zachariah, and I had always been...
Yo, where you be finding these names from? Zachariah? I know that's a really... I haven't heard anybody called Zachariah, well, maybe Zach, but not Zachariah. Like a Zachary or something, but...
Warned to never go to the dark web because you never know what might be lurking behind the pages. One stormy night, I was at my house and Zachariah was at his, and we stupidly...
It's at your own, you diggity ass. Oh, yo, his stories be cracking me up though. It's with his stories, it's the stuff that he says, like what the characters might say, or what you might read on the newspaper, or what you might see on the phone, or stuff like this, like diggity dumbass. Like, come on now.
Disobeyed the warning. He said he was going to check it out, and so did I. My curiosity landed me on a website called A Deathly mystery. It was a room.
I'm sorry, the ministry is usually holy. Sometimes depends on. Sometimes a little perverted. But that's another topic for another story. We're not gonna go there. Definitely ministry is not a good sign. So if I was y'all, I would get off that. I don't know why people go on the deep web. Like, y'all are bonkers for going on there.
That was lit only by candles. And on the wall was a large wooden crucifix that hung in a very creepy way.
And you got your window open, my dude.
Appeared out of the darkness, and he appeared to be some sort of priest. Why did you come to this evil website full of sin? He asked. What in the actual fuck? I replied under my breath. Do not use profanity in the presence of a priest, he yelled.
How would you know I'm cursing unless you hacked my microphone, sir? The hell? What? That's creepy.
You can hear me? I asked. Yes, and I can see you as well, he replied. But the strange thing was, he never asked me for access to my microphone or my camera. So how in the hell was he hearing and seeing me? I'm going to ask you once again, why did you come to the dark web? He said, his eyes bulging in a creepy way. I don't know. I guess I was just curious. I replied nervously. You knew this place was evil, but you decided to come here anyway. To witness what? Murders? Or maybe hire an assassin to kill someone? You are going to hell, young man. I curse you for the rest of the days of your life, he said. But wait, then, before I could finish my sentence, the screen went black.
Nope.
He was gone.
Nope.
Suddenly.
And you got your freaking window open, fool. You deserve what you get at this moment.
I had became extremely tired and a bit sick, so I decided to sleep it off and get some rest.
Nope.
Later that night, I felt a bit better, but that soon changed after I received a telephone call. It was my best friend Zachariah's mother, her voice in a somber tone, and I could tell that she had been crying. She said that Zach was dead and said that she had found him.
Haha. My Girlfriend Wants to Kill Me Season 2, Episode 6 coming soon.
With his face on his desk in a puddle of blood. I ran over to his house immediately and asked his mother if I could see his room. And on the screen of his computer was the same website I was on, with the same priest just staring at the screen. You are next.
This why you stay off the dark web. Don't do this stuff. No. And question, how he end up dead? That means if the priest asked the same question, what did Zachariah answer that got him killed? Nope.
Hi, Oddings.
Okay, as you know, this next story is by Snarled. So this is called Don't Invite the Duppy. The podcast, it had to do with, I think it had to do with Jamaican stories or island stories. I know this one is a Jamaican scary story. I never heard of the Duppy. I know a few Jamaicans, but they never really talked about the story or never really said it. I guess I don't know if it's within their culture. Not sure. But we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna skip it because usually she has some type of advertisement going on. Also, please check out Snarled. Sapphire is kind of, I don't want to say she's completely leaving Snarled, but I know she's not going to be making videos on them at the moment. Somebody else is replacing her at the moment. It's going to be replacing her, you know, doing the stories. So her last video will be within this playlist that I have here, that you guys will see very soon once I get them up and edited.
And Psychic Kids at 10 p.m.
Hey, I'm Sapphire.
Want to hear something scary? Don't invite a duppy. The following story was inspired by Chan. I live in Jamaica. Here, everyone has ghost stories, or as we call them, duppy stories. My obsession with duppy began when I was 11, when I was at my grandma's funeral. There was nobody in attendance except me, my little sisters Tanya and Nina, my mom, and my uncle Louis. They lowered my grandma's coffin into the ground, and my uncle placed an upside-down shrub on the coffin, roots pointed up. I looked up at my mom, who was staring intently at the grave. "Mom, what is that?" She was stone-faced and said nothing. My Uncle Louis put his hand on my shoulder. "Little Chan, when people die, the good soul goes up to heaven and the bad soul stays in the ground. After 3 days, the bad soul's shadow rises up and walks the earth as a duppy." He continued, "If the shrub faces down, the shadow gets confused and stays put. But if the shrub faces right side up," he shook his head and clicked his tongue. My mother became enraged. "Stop telling her that shit," she hissed. From that day on, duppy were all I could think about. I followed my Uncle Louis around, asking him to tell me more duppy stories. "Duppy?" He laughed. "They're as real as me or you, but they're all bad. They're mean. They can grab you, hurt you, or worse. Don't look for duppy, and never ever invite a duppy to come to you." But are there any cute duppy?
So what sounds like a duppy, it sounds like a ghost or a demon type of thing, or, you know, entity that you shouldn't allow in your house. Spirit, like, if you believe in that stuff, that's we're gonna keep going. I asked. "You wouldn't like them. They stink of death, and they have no face, just wide, grinning teeth." He made a scary face, and I screamed. Then we both laughed hysterically. The next day, I skipped through the graveyard, carrying a basket of flowers, and placed them one by one in front of 13 tombstones. With each one I placed, I said, "Duppy, duppy, come to me." A week later, the worst possible. Girl, you is stupid. Didn't he tell you not to invite them? And you, I know children are impressionable. I do know that. This is why you shouldn't tell them certain things, especially if certain things like that are true. Because they're willing to try it, no matter what the consequences is, because they're not thinking of the consequences. The whole thing happened. Uncle Louis was killed in town by a mugger. The culprit got away and was never found. And just like that, we were burying another relative. I was given the job of placing the shrub on the coffin. I thought about my Uncle Louis and how I would do anything to see him again. I placed the shrub on his coffin and uttered under my breath,
Duppy, Duppy, come to me.
Yes.
We inherited my grandma's house from Uncle Lewis, and my sister's mom and I moved in after the funeral. There was a coldness about my grandma's house. It was sad and smelled weird. The lights in some of the rooms didn't turn on, and what daylight came in through the windows was dimmed by the large trees outside. My mom became weirdly needy to me and my sisters. I would walk Tanya and Nina home from school and find my mom sitting on the veranda, waiting for us to get home. She smiled and welcomed us, but her eyes wore a secret pain. I think she didn't want to be alone inside.
I think I need to get out that house. That's what I think. I think I need to get out the house because I think a spirit or a duppy has been invited in and something's not right. If your mom was normally not needy towards y'all or whatever, and you felt the cold in the house and lights weren't working and all that stuff, there's something wrong. Something very wrong.
The house. At night, the wind had begun to bellow and shake the walls. My mom would cook meals and they would become rotten when she turned her back on them.
See?
She dragged a cot into our room to sleep and abandoned her own room altogether. Then one day, my mom confronted me. She asked me, "Chan, what direction did you plant the shrub on top of Uncle Lewis?" I stammered. The way I was supposed to, with the roots pointing up. I lied. "I see," she said with a calm fury. Pangs of guilt stung my skin. Later that night, the wind got so loud that the rattling of the roof woke me up. My mom and my sisters were sound asleep. I groped through the darkness to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. On my way back to the room, the wind built in intensity, and the door to my mom's bedroom began to swing rapidly open.
See, stuff like that, I'd be like, yep, I'm going right back to my room. I didn't see nothing. I'm going to bed.
And shut. I was too curious to turn away. I peeked through the door, and there was just my mom's empty bed and personal things she hadn't bothered to remove. The trees thrashed violently outside the window. I took a few steps forward until I was standing at the center of the room. The wind erupted into a chorus and whistled louder than ever. I got a knot in my stomach as I smelled something rotten. I heard my own teeth chattering and my curiosity turned to pure dread. The closet door creaked ajar, and what I saw turned my legs to quivering jelly. A hand with long, pointy fingers curled around the closet door. My hand softened. I heard my water glass shatter on the ground. My body pivoted weakly towards the window. The moon came out from behind the clouds and twisting trees and revealed 13 silhouettes standing in the room with me.
She put 13 flowers on graves. And she did say that saying about the duppy to come to her. Yeah, you screwed yourself, girl. You screwed yourself.
One for every flower I placed in the graveyard. They bore featureless faces and grinning mouths. Too stunned to run, I fell terrified to the ground, fumbling and clambering awkwardly to the exit on my hands, elbows, and knees. Bony fingers clawed at me and tried to pull me back. They scratched my skin as I struggled loose. A hand grabbed my ankle and almost yanked me away until I kicked for my life. Trembling, I finally scrambled through the door and slammed it shut behind me. The wind moaned in concert with labored gasps as the sound of hands battered the door. I began to weep as I nervously ran back down the hall. "Mom, Tanya, Nina, we need to leave this house now." I opened the door to the bedroom where my family slept. In an instant, I felt my whole world drop away beneath me. There on the floor were the lifeless bodies of Tanya, Nina, and my mom. Above them stood a shadowy figure. It was my Uncle Lewis. But his warm eyes and comforting smile were gone, now replaced with a terrifying grin and unearthly stench. He stepped towards me and said,
"Duppy, Duppy, come to me."
See, you see what you asked for? You asked for stuff and you got it. There you go. You asked for your uncle to come back to you, and you got him not the way you wanted him. You got him the way you... He told you the story in which you shouldn't have. And now you got an evil spirit in your uncle's body because you were so freaking curious. Like I said before, curiosity killed the cat. And you are one scared cat that might be dead.
Thank you to all of our patrons.
Anyway, we're gonna move to the next story. It's called I Love to Beat People Up by Wanzi Entertainment because I know the drawings when I see it.
Hi, my name is Lola. Well, that's my nickname. I'm a mixed girl that grew up in the projects of East Oakland. I'm 50% Mexican and 50% Creole, and my story is about how I loved to fight. Now, I'm not talking MMA, and I know this sounds very, very ridiculous. It's a sad case, but it's true. It all started in the 6th grade. I was a pretty good student in elementary school. I did well in school. I had like 4 friends, and I never got into trouble. Nobody was expecting my big change. In the 6th grade, I met this girl, let's call her Tanisha. Tanisha was my first friend at my new school, besides my old friends. She introduced me to her friends, and they were really cool. I hung out with them almost all the time. I ended up ditching my other 4 friends from elementary school. It was all good until one of the girls, let's call her Jade, was spreading rumors about me behind my back. Now, my mom always told me to never get too close to anyone, but I thought I could trust these girls. I was wrong. Very wrong. I texted Jade later that week. I was angry and I told her off. She acted like she didn't do anything that bad. That made me so upset, so I ended up telling her to meet me at the park. The next morning, I showed up to the park next to...
Oh, she went business, hair tied. But see, when you messed up, if you was gonna fight, you kept them earrings out your ear.
Our school in my bonnet, sweats, and a t-shirt. She knew what time it was. She threw her backpack on the floor, and I took off my hoops. We ended up fighting, and I won. I was very proud of myself. The principals found out and suspended us both. My mom wasn't proud, but she was just happy I stuck up for myself and didn't get hurt. When I went back to school, I received a lot of attention. Everybody's kid knew about me, even from the 3 cities around me. I even gained a lot of friends and followers on my social media accounts. I loved the feeling of fighting and the attention. I couldn't stop. Later that trimester, the group of friends that I had turned against me, so I fought them too. I didn't care about school anymore. My grades and attendance went down the drain, and I never showed up to class. I tried to join this gang. I'm not going to name it, but I wasn't able to hold them down, and my addiction to fighting turned into an addiction to other things. Now, I'm not gonna speak too much on that, but anyways, I was suspended 8 times for fighting. At my 9th suspension, they decided to expel me from that school. I never lost a fight, and my mom told me to watch out because one day I would meet my match. My mom was very upset with my ongoing bad behavior. The next year, I went to a new school. I had a lot of friends there too. Everybody thought I learned my lesson, but I was even worse. I fought everyone, even if they didn't do anything that big. Someone could just look at me the wrong way, and I would confront them and then beat them up. I got arrested 4 times and...
You got arrested? But then again, you did put your hands on people that didn't deserve it. So hopefully whoever you met didn't hurt you too bad.
And I've been to court twice. I had no fear. Even though I love to fight, I was still girly though. I love fashion, and I've been told that I'm very pretty, which is why people didn't understand the reason why I fought so much. I fought because I didn't like the feeling of embarrassment and disrespect. Somehow, people never cared about how I felt. I got got suspended a lot from my new school and then got expelled because I fought a girl who didn't want to fight.
Right.
It was embarrassing for me because I bullied her, and it was embarrassing for her because she got beat up. I got charged with battery. I had a lot of charges in the past. It really wasn't anything to me. I felt bad for her, but I did what I felt was right. Everybody was scared of me.
So you did what you thought was right. So beating up on a girl who did not want to fight, that you thought was disrespectful or, you know, embarrassed you or whatever, that was right. Oh, girl, I'm so glad I haven't met you or whatever, because you would have met your match that day. You would have met your match that day.
I thought that was what I wanted, but it was not. I hated it. Everyone thought something was wrong with me. Most people were too afraid to tell me. People told my mom that I am a problem, and that hurt her, which made me really sad. I ended up going to a continuation school, and I had problems there too. I started thinking something was wrong with me too, just like everyone else did. I just wish I could start over and do everything right. Now I do independent studies and I don't fight as often. I'm trying to control my anger and I keep working on my attitude. I want to do better for next year when my expulsion plan is over.
Go ahead. Anyway, the next story is called College Horror Story by Llama Arts, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, by Llama Arts, because I recognize his. Llama Arts is incredible. Wandy is incredible.
Back when I was in college, me and my best friend Miko heard a rumor that our dormitory...
Yo, this dude, the one that likes to sneak in people's houses on Snapchat and stuff, and got beat up. Okay.
...was haunted. I didn't encounter anything in the 2 years of staying there, so I was skeptical. I could see why the rumor started. Our dorm was kind of creepy, and Miko was convinced it was true. One day, I placed a hot cup of coffee in the sink and said, "If this cup magically empties itself by the time we get back from school, I'll believe you." "Deal. Want to bet on it?" "Come on, you won't bet on it because you know you'll lose." When I arrived home, I noticed Miko was asleep. It seemed quite weird, as he would normally be playing games or cooking in the kitchen.
Wait. Oh, go back.
Sleep. It seemed quite weird, as he would normally be playing games or...
That ain't sleep. He does have pupils in his eyes, don't he?
Cooking in the kitchen. I put my bag on the table and noticed the cup in the sink. I knew it, I said to myself. I started to pour the coffee away when my phone vibrated. "Why are you calling me?"
That ain't your friend.
I thought perhaps he left his phone at school. I answered. "Hello?" "Hey, just eat without me tonight if you're hungry. I'm still at the store getting food supplies for next week. I grabbed some coffee. I noticed we're almost out. Oh, and I tried looking for that green sauce you put in your homemade burgers. No luck, though." "But, wait, another checkout just opened. I'll cook tonight. I shouldn't be too long. See ya." I was confused. My eyes darted around the room as I tried to gather my thoughts. That's when I realized something. I was too freaked out at this point. No.
I knew it. I was like, that's not your friend in the bed. Whew.
"Hey, I hope you're hungry." Oh.
Wait, what?
You're hungry. Oh.
Is he asleep or dead? Wait. Did the ghost kill him? Okay, I have questions for this one. Was it like a doppelganger? What happened to the friend that was on the bed? Is he alive? Is he dead? Okay.
Thanks to XP Pen for sponsoring this video and sending over the...
Yeah, moving on to the next story. I don't think he has anything added on. Yeah, moving on to the next one. This one's called The Hikers by Scary Story Animated, or published by Nightmare Tales. So.
In the southern highlands of the Australian state of New South Wales, the Belangolo State Forest is home to an enormous area of plantation pine and native forestry. It's free to access for all and is popular for four-wheel driving, trail bike riding, and forest camping. In December 1989, two American tourists set off into the forest with the intention to spend several days hiking and camping as they made their way from one side of the forest to the other. Both physically fit and experienced in hiking and orienteering, their first day was spent trekking up into the hills to gain a solid viewpoint from which to survey the land around them. From one of the highest points, the view was spectacular, so the couple stopped to rest and take in the beauty of their surroundings. Whilst observing the vastness of the countryside, the man pondered how easy it would be to come lost out here, or worse, to disappear completely. As she took a drink, the woman dislodged a small rock, knocking it off the edge and sending it falling hundreds of feet into the water below. She felt a chill as she realized how easy it would be to fall off, and how slim the chances of survival would be. They thought they were completely alone. However, this changed when they realized they could hear the sound of footsteps heading up the hill behind them. The man could make out the silhouette of a single person who had stopped and was just standing there.
Why do I have a feeling that either they're gonna fall off, or they're gonna get pushed off, or one of them is gonna get pushed off while the other one makes it out. I just get that feeling.
Although this wasn't particularly unusual, it still didn't feel quite right, so he told his girlfriend that he thought it would be best if they kept moving. She nodded in agreement, and they set off to find an area to camp for the night. As night fell over the forest, the temperature dropped quickly. Fortunately for the couple, they'd managed to set up their tent while they still had light, and had set up a campfire on which they cooked their dinner. They then sat and relaxed, staring deeply into the fire as they reflected on the day that had just gone, and excitedly pondered the next few days and what lay ahead. They soon retired to the tent and were asleep within minutes, thanks to the efforts of the day. The forest was at no time completely silent. There are dozens of nocturnal animals in Australia, and due to this, at night the forest comes alive with the sound of insects and marsupials. The couple felt quite comfortable sleeping to these sounds of nature and felt they were nothing particularly out of the ordinary, until the man was awoken by the sound of what he thought was crying. He leaned over to his girlfriend and asked her if she could hear it too. However, she was in a deep sleep, clearly undisturbed by this unsettling sound.
Don't go out there. Don't go out there.
The man then sat up and opened the tent door ever so slightly in order to see if he might be able to discover where the crying was coming from. He was frozen with fear when he realized that a large man had sat down at their campsite and was the source of the sobbing. The man then leaned back to his girlfriend and whispered as quietly as he could, "There's a man outside. There's a man outside the tent." Even though he shook her, she did not stir, and he realized he would be better off leaving her to sleep until he figured out what to do next.
Hello.
He lay there silently in the dark for several minutes, listening to the stranger talk to himself, and slowly the sobbing subsided. The man then decided that this stranger was of no threat to them, as it appeared he was either lost or homeless. Either way, he needed help, or at least someone to talk to. The man then stepped out of the tent and spoke to the stranger.
Why would you go
"Hello,"
outside?
he said. Are you lost?" "No," the man replied. "I just needed to sit and think for a moment. I saw that your fire was still smoldering, so I figured I would just sit here until I figured things out." "Oh,"
I figured I
the
wanted to
man
not kill
replied.
y'all.
"That's fine. What's the matter?" The man then sat down and spent the next few hours talking with the stranger. The stranger was at a crossroads in his life and appeared to be lacking the confidence to commit to the choices he had made. The man managed to convince him that any decision he makes would ultimately be the right one, and that sometimes it's better to follow your heart instead of your head.
You might be giving him
The stranger seemed re-energized by this and thanked the man for giving him the motivation he needed to continue. The night went on, so did the conversation, until the stranger decided it was time for him to leave, and so he did. The man returned to sleep in the tent and slept through, undisturbed until the next morning when he relayed the events of the night to his girlfriend. She thought that this was indeed very odd, and thought that he was making it all up, as she hadn't slept well at all due to the man's incessant snoring. The man laughed this off, and the couple went on with their hike, spending the next few days venturing deeper into the forest, followed by a few more days in the state capital, Sydney, before boarding a plane home to America. On the flight home, the man's thoughts wandered back to the unusual meeting and conversation with the strange man in the forest. His girlfriend was adamant it didn't happen, and it was indeed so bizarre he was beginning to question the reality of it himself. 4 years later, late one night in a dive bar in Chicago, the man looked up at a local news broadcast only to be shocked by what he saw.
Hold on. Did the man kill himself and jump off that cliff? Is that what happened? Or did he kill people? Because if he's sobbing, he feels like he's at a crossroad. There's a chance he was contemplating on suicide. Hopefully this man did not kill himself.
The presenter was relaying information about a serial killer who had been sentenced to jail for 7 consecutive life sentences, one for each of his victims.
I knew it. I was like, either he's planning on killing people, or killing them, or killing himself. Yvonne Millett, Australian, convicted of murdering 7 backpackers between May. Oh, the year I was born and the year my sister was born. See?
The report told of the dates when the victims went missing, and a feeling of terror and guilt ripped through the man as he realized that the first victim would have been around the exact time he had met this stranger.
See? Some bow, man. So the next story is called "My Crazy Stalker Broke Into My House." True story, and I think, yep, from the Grim Reader.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm 27, and I have a story to share with you. This is one of the scariest things that has ever happened to me. It's a bit of a long story, so stick with me. I grew up and went to school in a small town in Ohio. It was your typical quiet, rural, white neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. Not much to do.
Like a fake Sims
In
area.
fact, I'd go as far as to say that life was boring. At 18 years of age, I had enough. I needed more excitement in my life. I wanted to move out, to start a new life, meet new people, and get a better paying job. So, one day, I sold my car and a few other belongings I had and moved to Portland, Oregon. I loved the city. The noise, the cars, the lights. I loved it all. A place so different to my town and just everything I was looking for. Shortly after moving, I got myself a job, fairly close to my apartment at a local store, and started doing the night shifts. The pay was good, and it was really close to my place, so I was lucky in that sense. Surprisingly though, the night shifts weren't as busy as I thought. 10 customers would be the maximum per night, and for a neighborhood as populated as this one, it was surprising. I never had any bad experiences with customers, and all was well. It's important to mention at this point that I had no friends, yet. I got to know a couple of my co-workers and my boss, but only spent time with them during work hours, and sometimes wouldn't even see them at work. So, one early morning, at around 5 a.m., I was walking back to my apartment as my shift had ended. It was still dark as it was winter here in Portland. As I walked along the sidewalk, I noticed a red car with black tinted windows, but the passenger window lowered. I saw a glimpse of a man, middle-aged, bearded, handsome dude, staring at me. I'm really shy, and like many introverts, staring back at him would never be an option. The last thing I wanted to do was start up a conversation with a random man in a dark street at 5 a.m. in the morning. As I walked further from the car, I could feel his eyes on my back. I knew he was staring at me. I walked as calmly as possible and got to my place shortly after, exhausted, and never even gave a second thought to the man in the red car.
The door?
I went to sleep.
If you broke in, obviously your doors were locked and stuff.
I was living alone in a fairly spacious 3-bedroom apartment with the ground floor all to myself. There were 2 bedrooms upstairs, but they were currently empty, and so I was alone. The neighborhood was not so great. My apartment was on the ground level, and my bedroom window faced the main street. A dumpster sat less than 2 car lengths away, where homeless people would often rummage. Before I get to the scary part, let me tell you about my fear of big cities. As a small town girl, my biggest fear in a big city was getting kidnapped, and then raped or sold to sex trafficking gangs. My mom would always bang on and on about the dangers of big cities, and this really stuck with me. From the day I arrived, I was always paranoid. If a random man stares at me for a little too long, I'd have a mini panic attack.
Can't be having that.
About 1 after I went to bed, past 6 a.m. now, but still dark outside, I heard a tapping at my window.
And I would have kept
my back
like
was to the window, and my eyes were now wide open. As I already said, it was still dark outside. I sleep with my lamp on, and my worn-out vertical blinds were missing a slat, causing a huge 6-inch gap. So I knew that whoever or whatever the source of the tapping was could see me laying in bed as plain as day. The tapping was brief, maybe 5 or 6 taps, so I spent the next 5 seconds or so frozen, bizarrely trying to convince myself that it was something, anything else but a person, watching me and tapping on my window. Maybe an animal. Remember, my back was to the guy, so I sat up slowly, rubbing my eyes and pretending I was too groggy to hear him. I stood up and hazily made my way out of my bedroom as though I were going to the restroom or something.
Call the police.
Once I was out of his sight, I ran straight to the phone to dial 911, considering whether to forget any embarrassment of being in my t-shirt, underwear and socks and bolt out of my front door, which was out of sight from the intruder. I just wasn't sure I could outrun whoever it was or whether anyone would help me if I couldn't, considering nobody really speaks to each other in this big city, unlike my small town where everyone talks to everyone. Before I could make a decision, I heard the loud pop of my window being pried open. I thought my heart would jump out from my chest. At the same time, I could hear the operator trying to get my attention on the phone. I quickly told the police my address to get here quickly, as there was an intruder trying to get in my house. I told them to hurry up and that I'd be in the bathroom. At this point I was scared, and my heart was racing so fast I thought I'd pass out.
Before going to the bathroom.
There is a police station close to my apartment, so I knew it wouldn't be long before they arrived.
Nope, just because they closed.
I stormed into the bathroom and locked myself in.
Don't mean they're going to get there on time.
About a minute later, the man was at my bathroom, banging on my bathroom door. I was leaning against the door, holding on for dear life, hoping that it wouldn't break. Two minutes later, I heard the police sirens, and almost immediately, the police entered my apartment. I heard the loud footsteps and all the commotion, but I didn't come out. I heard them screaming and yelling at the man to put his hands up and get on the floor. I still didn't make any noise. I stood there, leaning against the bathroom door, praying that everything was okay. The commotion quietened down, and a policewoman knocked on the bathroom door after about 10 minutes, quietly telling me that it was safe to come out. I opened my door a few inches and peeked out, still terrified. The policewoman took a lot of information from me. I told her everything I could remember, including the man in the red car from earlier. She told me that they arrested the intruder and that he was outside, and asked me if I would know him by any chance. To my absolute shock and surprise, it was the same man from earlier in the night in the street, in the same red car. They arrested him and took him in for questioning, and he went to jail for attempted robbery, home invasion, and stalking. Turns out, he first saw me on the 14th of January, which is the first day that I arrived in Portland.
So he stalked you.
Today it's the 27th of January. He confessed that every single day that I was in Portland, he would follow me around. He knew my work hours, my address, my workplace, and even followed me to the nearby gym that I signed up at 4 days ago. He never shared his plans or what he intended on doing with me. The police did not find any weapons on him, which is so weird. The police later told me, however, that he has a history of mental disorders and schizophrenia. He's always had problems of not taking his medication, and has been arrested multiple times for having manic episodes. So, I guess he wanted to kidnap me? I don't know, but the fact that he had no weapons on him whatsoever is so weird to me. So, that's my story. I moved out to a different, safer neighborhood and I'm now on the 27th floor. I'll likely be keeping my job because it pays so well, and as an introvert, I like the quietness of the night shift. Sometimes though, I wonder if I made a big mistake by moving to a big city as the introvert, shy person that I am. Maybe the small town suits me better. Well, either way, this incident doesn't help me at all. I hope you enjoyed my story. Stay safe out there, people, and see you next time.
Yeah, so he pretty much stalked you until he learned almost everything about your whole routine. You know, you go to work, you come home, you go to a gym, you come home, and all this other stuff. So, since he was coming in your house with no weapons, and he was a schizo, there's a chance he could have just killed you with his bare hands, raped you, kidnapped you, anything possible without weapons. You don't know. But at least you had an opportunity to get to the phone. Because if your window was already open, who knows what would have happened. Anyway, let's head on to the next video.
Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN.
Next video is called The Mysterious Girl in My House Wants to Play With Me. First of all, that's weird. By Wanzi, of course. Damn, did we have this whole thing take up yours?
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and I'm 15. A few months ago, something strange happened to me. To this day, I can't explain exactly what happened. I was relaxing at my house, doing some schoolwork on my laptop. Being home alone never bothered me until then. After about 2 hours of being alone, I decided to go get some ice cream from the freezer. As I headed back with ice cream to my room, I heard someone bang on the front door. I never answer the doors, and I always make sure they're locked when my parents leave. I decided it was the mailman, and that he would set the package down and leave. Then I heard the bang again, but louder. I was confused, so I went to my dad's office since it had a window facing the front porch. The second I grabbed the door handle of his office, my parents' bedroom door slammed shut right next to me.
Yep,
I screamed.
Nope. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, well, time for me to go. Whoever's in this house, y'all can keep it for all I care. I don't pay the rent. I was going somewhere else. Good night.
Our air conditioning was broken at the time, so there was no way it could have been the air. I looked at the door, ran to the other side of the house, and called my mom to see if she was expecting anyone over. "No, Alyssa," she said. And those 2 words made my heart beat faster than it ever has. My phone disconnected, and I started hearing footsteps coming towards me from down the hallway. I ran and hid behind a door in our living room. I knew I'd be out of sight, since I used to hide there as a child. I called my close friend Emily, who always knew how to calm me down in crazy situations. She told me to go and lock myself in my room. As she was talking, I started to hear doors open and slam shut along with footsteps, and the voice of a little girl saying, "I'm going to find you," over and over. I started crying, and when the noise stopped, I ran to my bedroom door. When I grabbed the handle and was about to go in, I heard it again. The little girl was in my room and said, "Come here, Alyssa. I want to play. Come here."
Nope.
I ran to the guest bathroom and locked myself in.
Why are you still in that
I started
house?
to hear knocking on the bathroom door and the voice, "Don't you want to play, Alyssa? We could have a lot of fun." I started screaming back, "Hell no, just leave me alone." She started laughing. The knocking and laughter grew louder and louder, and then it started sounding like that thing, started to walk away, still laughing and knocking. Then I couldn't hear it anymore. My grandpa came into the house yelling, "Alyssa, it's Grandpa. You can come out, you're safe." I ran as fast as I could to my grandpa. Later on, I found out that after my phone cut out on my mom, she sent my grandpa to check on me. Once I told my grandpa that a little girl had gotten into the house, we went around the house searching for her, but we never found anything. All the windows and the doors were locked. The garage was closed up tight, and nothing was broken into. I hate being home alone now, and being in my room, but I've learned to deal.
Wait, whoa, Wandy.
Before we start this animation, I would love to say that I thank Dashlane for sponsoring. Before we start this animation, I would love to...
Today's video is sponsored by NordVPN.
You just can't.
Closed up tight, and nothing was broken into. I hate being home alone now, and being in my room, but I've...
Yeah, you can't just end the video like that. That's creepy. And most likely it wasn't an actual human. It was the spirit of a little girl. Now, who said it wasn't? It could have been demonic. And she wanted to play with you, alright? Just saying. Anyway, moving on.
Before we start this animation,
I'm not gonna ask you why you have sharp teeth. Don't want to know. This story is called My True Horror Story of Sock by Wandy.
I would love to say that I thank Dashlane for sponsoring this video. Now, I have some scary things to tell you. According to the analysts, 620 million online accounts are up for sale in the dark web by hackers. That means our information is floating around in the dark web. And we don't want to be on that list, right?
That's why you keep changing your password or whatever.
When I was about 9 years old, I was in my swimsuit, ready to go to swimming lessons. My brother and I had made a pillow fort, and it was still there from the night before. I had crawled underneath the coffee table, where a blanket went over it, blocking out the outside world. I have no idea why I stuck my foot outside of the blanket, but I did. A dark black sock crawled creepily towards my foot and slowly slid over it. The sock was cold, and I felt odd. I recognized the sock. It looked just like the one my mom had. I called out my mom's name and my brother's name, but there was no response, only silence. I walked to the window, but when I looked out, there was nothing out of the ordinary. I saw my cat staring at me with a weird look on her face.
First of all, your cat is on something. Whatever it is on something, because ain't no way my cat gonna be sitting there looking at me like it wants to bite out of my neck, man. No.
Then, I was horrified when I heard the shower running upstairs. My mom was still in the shower, and my dad was at work. I ran up the stairs to find my brother spinning on the chair in my parents' room. I asked him if he went downstairs, and he told me he had nothing to do with the situation. I told my mom what had happened, but she didn't believe me. She said that I was probably hallucinating and that it was just the cat. But I know what I saw, and the look on my cat's face is still fresh in my memory.
Why do they all look like that? Wait, what? Okay, somebody... you know what? If somebody can explain this story to me, you can leave that in the comments below. Thank you, but... yeah. If you like what you saw here, give this video a like. I will put in the description below everybody whose video has been shown. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for me and those channels. And hit that notification bell so you know when I post videos. Bye!
This sound like what? 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 This